The fourth Trump indictment came down, and it's a doozy. They are, again, Donald Trump alone faces 13 charges in this indictment from Georgia versus Donald John Trump. Those 13 charges together could combine into 71 years in prison. That would get him up to, if all of these charges he was found guilty of, I think somewhere close to 800 years in prison if you add up the four different cases, two federal, two state, that he is facing right now. There are 41 different charges mentioned in this indictment, spread across 19 different defendants. President Trump himself is indicted with 13 different charges, Dad.
Yes, and let me say this also, because this is, I think, points to reality. If you looked at the totality of this complaint, this criminal case that's been brought, here's what it does. It criminalizes the practice of law. If you're an election lawyer, you're going to be very hesitant to file an election law challenge. If this is the future trend in jurisdictions around the country, that you turn a legitimate election challenge, even if those theories are novel or new, which lawyers do every day, into, this is what's important here, into this kind of morass of turning everything into a state RICO, racketeering, influence, and corrupt organizations case. So it chills the ability of the lawyers to defend their clients. Every election, and Jordan, you know this, every election has a national election I'm talking about here, has election challenges. That's part of it. There's teams. That's all they do.
And lots of local elections do, too. I mean, even at the most local level, because those races can be very tight. I mean, you see state rep races, city council races. Those can be within 10, 12, or just 100 votes that could sway the race. So there are always, every major campaign sets up, usually has someone in their office, and their only job at the presidential campaign, but their only legal job, they're an attorney, is to coordinate volunteer attorneys all across the country in every major voting location, so that on Election Day and leading up to Election Day, there is already a team of attorneys who've gone through training and are ready to go and file. If they need to file, for instance, the time. You see that all the time. I think we saw it in the last election multiple times through places that, like in Arizona, where the voting machines weren't working for a couple of hours, so you've got to go file in court to keep those voting machines open for an additional 2 hours.
Right.
That is technically an election challenge. And so going to court on Election Day is not bizarre. Going to court after Election Day is not bizarre. I mean, Bush versus Gore was not decided in November.
No, I was involved in the Bush versus Gore challenges, both in Florida and at the U.S. Supreme Court. And frequently, I took a case for President Trump to the Supreme Court out of Pennsylvania right after the election. It was like November 4th. November 5th, we were in federal court and ended up in the Supreme Court of the United States. We won. They had to segregate those late ballots. They ended up not being outcome determinative because there was enough votes purportedly for Biden to carry the day. So, but we won. We got to stay, and all the justices agreed with us that you can't amend the laws of the state on voting issues by court fiat. It has to be legislative. Now, having said that, is the chilling effect of this, and it's for real, folks, is what it does to the lawyers representing people. So in Washington, you had this great challenge, I think, on the January 6th one on free speech, but they also indicted as unindicted co-conspirators. They didn't indict them as unindicted co-conspirators, lawyers that were defending those that were engaged in free speech. Next segment of the broadcast, I'm going to talk about that at length. When you start doing that, what happens in a society when you punish the lawyers? Hi, this is Jay Sekulow. You've spoken and we've heard you loud and clear. That's why this month we're doing something big. We're proud to announce our brand new ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive. Our legal teams will be focusing on the issues that you've told us matter the most to you: life and religious liberty. This month, we're redoubling our efforts to beat back the radical left's attacks on your constitutional religious freedoms and to defend the sanctity of human life. Life and liberty are the cornerstones of our great nation, but they're not guaranteed when the values we hold dear are under attack from within. It's up to all of us to take a stand or risk losing them forever. This is not just a call to fund our legal battles. This is your moment to get in the fight. Every tax-deductible gift you give will be doubled, dollar for dollar, through the ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive, and help us fight to literally save lives. Go to aclj.org right now and join us in the fight.
the biggest news of the day, and this is the fourth, and we don't know if it's final indictment, but is the fourth indictment of President Trump, this time with 17 additional co-defendants, and again, actually 18 additional co-defendants. 41 different charges. Now, he doesn't face all of those 41. He faces 13, but you go through the list of names that you will know and names that you will not know through this list of individuals.
If you start indicting the lawyers that are defending the clients because they're engaged in free speech activities, and then you go after the lawyers too, that's a really dangerous move. So, in addition to President Trump, they go after Rudy Giuliani, who was my colleague in the Mueller probe. Now, Rudy Giuliani's crime, they include RICO and solicitation of the violation of an oath of public officials, and false statements and writings. The false statements and writings are legal positions that they were advocating at public hearings on behalf of their client. And that is now the basis of a RICO charge. And they're doing that to the former mayor of New York City, former U.S. attorney, former third-ranking official in the Department of Justice. Okay? So and then I could give you the list of lawyers. There's a lawyer on here. People aren't going to know him. I know him. He's a really good lawyer. Bob Cheeley. Excellent lawyer in Atlanta. Same thing. They have criminalized the practice of law. Their crime was they went to hearings and said, we believe there was election fraud. Here's what the remedies are. Here's how this should be done. And this is how you win these cases when they're brought against you. You're going to have mass defense. I mean, there needs to be a mass defense. I mean, I know some people are setting up legal defense funds. They're going to need to do that because this is going to be massive in scope.
I'd say of all the cases, when you look at them, New York was kind of a wash. People kind of shrug their shoulders at that one.
Because that one's probably getting dismissed out.
And then you look at the one in D.C. is really a speech case.
Yeah.
And so that one is pretty easy to understand. Is it free speech, First Amendment protected speech or not? And then you go to the classified documents.
Case is a document fight.
That's a document fight that takes a long time because of the Classified Documents Act. Getting that to the jury takes forever.
Right.
And it's bureaucracy. Is it the National Archives? Who was it wrong? This one,
very different.
This one is the multi-year, multi-client, multi-count.
This is the biggest one.
Yes, by far.
Because it's the most
complicated.
Most complicated, will take the longest. A president cannot pardon himself from a state cause of action. So you've got that ramification. And this is litigation and criminalization by tweet. Do you understand that? In these allegations, Act 22 of what is supposed to be the RICO Act here is on or about the 3rd day of December, Donald John Trump caused to be tweeted from his Twitter account at Real Donald Trump, quote, Georgia hearings now on OANN, amazing. And then it says this was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy.
Commenting on something that was on television.
Lawyers in America should be up in arms.
But they won't be. Conservative attorneys might, but you know what?
Even them I'm not so sure because nobody wants to get near this stuff. But here's the real problem here. I mean, first of all, some really good lawyers have been brought into this, which is not right. But as lawyers that represented this president, for 4 years, I could tell you as a lawyer, I read this thing twice last night, once this morning. I am incensed by the allegation of 41 counts, most of which are lawyers doing their job. You realize most of the defendants here are lawyers.
Yep. Yeah, it's going through.
I want everybody to hear that. They've gone after the lawyers, saying that the lawyers were involved in a racketeering, influence, corrupt organization scheme on the election, and they were advocating legal positions. But by the way, and Ken Cheeseborough, whose name's been now coming popular, he was a protege at Harvard Law, by the way, of who? Lawrence Tribe. John Eastman. People said, oh, who is he? A law clerk for Clarence Thomas and the dean of the Chapman School of Law, Bob Cheeley, one of the leading, if not the leading, defense plaintiffs lawyers, one of the leading plaintiffs lawyers in the state of Georgia. The chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. So when is everybody going to wake up and say report for duty here?
Yeah,
you can't just talk about this. You got to take action on this stuff.
There's multiple pages of this. It'll say an attorney who does this, an attorney who does this, another person's attorney working with the Trump team, a former Trump team, a Georgia attorney is how they recognize Cheeley. Not even working for Trump. They don't even say just a Georgia attorney, but that's how they describe it. I mean, The idea here is this. In our system of justice, you got to have attorneys to protect your rights. We're in a life and liberty drive right now. Part of that drive is that we're there to fight beside you, so that if you feel that your rights have been violated, whether it's the life or liberty, that you've got attorneys to fight for you. What this Georgia DA is trying to do in Fulton County is scare attorneys from taking cases.
That's exactly correct.
And that is not America. That is Russia. And that's not even maybe even Russia today. That's communist Russia. That's like Stalinism. That's like you can't even be associated with the accused, because being associated with the accused means you are also a criminal.
I'm incensed by this. This to me is disgusting that this DA, do we have that bite of mine? Folks, this is what I predicted at the Supreme Court of the United States on behalf of President Trump 3 years ago, and it's coming true now. Take a listen.
The Second Circuit is wrong and should be reversed. If not reversed, the decision weaponizes 2,300 local DAs. An overwhelming number of them are elected to office and are thereby accountable to their local constituencies. The decision would allow any DA to harass, distract, and interfere with the sitting president. It subjects the president to local prejudice that can influence prosecutorial decisions, and to state grand juries who can then be utilized to issue compulsory criminal process in the form of subpoenas targeting the president. This is not mere speculation. It is precisely what has taken place in this case, and with this subpoena we challenge.
That's in New York. This is in Georgia. And it's the same thing. It's not just the president. It's the president and his lawyers. And it's exactly what I said from this very studio, because we had to do the argument remote, to the Supreme Court of the United States. And I was exactly correct. You've weaponized these DAs to then turn around and shut up the lawyers. Stop the lawyers from speaking. Let's the lawyers stop. If we can shut down the lawyers. We think about Bush versus Gore. My gosh, there was 20 cases in litigation. It went to the Supreme Court of the United States to be determined. Would Bush and Gore be held liable for, criminal RICO when they were trying to get the count stopped? They were trying to get the count stopped. Remember, that was part of the process because they didn't think this count was going through in a legal manner. I'm just telling you, folks, that if we talk about, we're in the middle of a life and liberty drive, which we should probably do for the rest of the year on this. If we don't stand up for these lawyers, there is no way the country survives this when you have the lawyers. I'm not even talking about the president. When the lawyers are put in the crosshairs for defending their client, which we take an oath to do. An oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. And they're saying you do that, you now are a racketeer, influence, and corrupt organization criminal.
Yeah. I mean,
by the way, they all lose their bar license, too, on top of this.
It seems much easier right now in the United States of America to represent a murderer or rapist than it does a politician from the right, a conservative politician.
Yeah.
In many jurisdictions across the country. In those cases, they would say, represent the terrorist. That's a duty of the equal justice of the law. Represent Donald Trump. You're also a criminal. But take that theory further. If they get away with doing this time, again, people won't be able to find attorneys. People then will not be able to defend themselves in court.
We're having trouble finding lawyers to defend the lawyers right now.
What will ultimately happen is they shut you up.
Well, they get
you afraid to even engage these battles.
Jordan, we're in the middle of we're midway through our life and liberty challenge. We talked about life yesterday. We're talking about liberty today. Let me tell you the heart of liberty, okay, is having a constitutional republic that can function. And I'm not just saying this because I am a lawyer, but the idea that you can shut the lawyers up by throwing indictments at them for engaging in defense of their client. I'm not talking about contempt of court. Trial lawyers, we've all been threatened with that before. I'm talking about losing your personal liberty. These lawyers are losing their personal liberty for representing a client who happened to be the president of the United States. You want to help us help them? Go to aclj.org right now. Join our Life and Liberty Drive, and this is the liberty portion of that drive. Your gifts will be doubled. aclj.org. Do it today. We encourage you to be engaged in this incredibly important issue. aclj.org, Life and Liberty Drive.
Hey everyone, this is Jordan Sekulow. You've spoken and we've heard you loud and clear. That's why this month we're doing something big. We're proud to announce our brand new ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive. Our legal teams will be focusing on the issues that you, our ACLJ members, have told us matter the most to you: life and religious liberty. We're redoubling our efforts to beat back the radical left's attack on your constitutional religious freedoms and to defend the sanctity of human life. Life and liberty are the cornerstones of our great nation, but they're not guaranteed. When the values we hold dear are under attack, it's up to all of us to take a stand or risk losing them forever. This is not just a call to fund our legal battles. This is your moment to get in the fight. Just as before, every tax-deductible gift will be doubled, dollar for dollar, through the ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive, giving you twice the impact to defend your freedoms and help us fight to literally save lives. Join the ACLJ in the fight to keep America free. Yeah, welcome back to Sekulow. There's a lot to break down in this. There's a lot to talk about. I keep getting calls from different media outlets, and it's because everybody's looking at it from different points. And some of this is just because
calls from lawyers all over the state of Georgia.
No one's really seen anything like this before.
No.
With the first of all, RICO used in a political matter, RICO used in a matter of people's whose views that they shared on Twitter, saying a tweet about a hearing on One America News Network. It's great that they're having a hearing on that. Is somehow part of a RICO, a conspiracy. Literally, that's in the count. But the left thinks this is a wonderful day for America, and that's when I scratch my head and say, they're not. They don't realize what they're doing to the United States of America.
Can we? Rick is joining us. I want to play though. Do we have it yet, Will? We have it. Rick, I stood in this studio during COVID and argued a case before the Supreme Court of the United States on behalf of President Trump, and I said something in the beginning of that argument. They give you 2 minutes to say something uninterrupted, so this is not 2 minutes, it's about 40 seconds. But I want to play this for everybody because it's exactly what I said was going to happen. Take a listen to this.
The Second Circuit is wrong and should be reversed. If not reversed, the decision weaponizes 2,300 local DAs. An overwhelming number of them are elected to office and are thereby accountable to their local constituencies. The decision would allow any DA to harass, distract, and interfere with the sitting president. It subjects the president to local prejudice that can influence prosecutorial decisions and to state grand juries who can then be utilized to issue compulsory criminal process in the form of subpoenas targeting the president. This is not mere speculation. It is precisely what has taken place in this case, and with this subpoena we challenge.
2,300, Rick, weaponized local DAs. One of them happens to be in Fulton County, Georgia. I said that almost 3 years ago, and I mean, I'm not a prophet, but boy, was I right. And now what they've done, in addition to going after President Trump so they can knock him out politically, they're going after the lawyers, whose job it is to defend people. And I think this is one of the greatest attacks on liberty we have seen in our lifetime.
Look, Jay, what ended up happening a couple of years ago is that you saw very clearly that this was a bad precedent, and that if it went forward, it would allow local DAs who are hungry for political life. They're hungry for media attention. They're wanting bigger jobs. They're wanting statewide jobs. But what you did is you warned everyone that if this went forward, we would have local DAs wreaking havoc on the justice system. And what we saw yesterday is a local DA completely wreaking havoc on the justice system. It was embarrassing to watch her lay out RICO charges. She didn't know what she was talking about. She was reaching. There was clearly a political bent to this. We saw the charges go up online before the grand jury even voted. This is a system that is making a mockery of the United States' justice system, and we've got to put an end to it.
You know, and then the Fulton County clerk's office said, oh, that was not, somebody must have put that by false. And then when you saw the document that actually came out, no, it was exactly correct. So, I mean, that, and then Reuters got the indictment first, and Reuters was the one who published that. So it was obviously Fani Willis' office was probably talking to I don't know this, to Reuters. But here's what I'm concerned about. When I said you're weaponizing these district attorneys, but going after it's one thing to go after the president, bad enough. You go after the lawyers representing these people, and these are some of the most well-respected lawyers, Rick, in Georgia, in Atlanta. I mean, I'm like stunned. They have charged Bob Cheeley, one of the best trial lawyers in the state, with multiple count indictments on felonies. Bob Cheeley, multiple count indictments on felonies. He's not a household name. He's not a name you know. That we know they charge Rudy, who for showing up at legislative hearings and say, hey, this is what you should be doing. This is what we think the law is. That is now been and that's what I cannot stand about this, is you criminalize the defense of the lawyers. And of course, I'm biased, but the truth is we're supposed to be the guardians of liberty. We're the bulletproof vest between our client and the state. And you can't be the bulletproof vest if they threaten you, or not just threaten you, indict you and throw you in jail. And I thought it was acrimonious 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I was doing this for the former president. But now we're in a brave new world, Rick. A dangerous, brave new world.
Look, to me, it looks like the death of common sense. Most people are watching this and saying, what happened? But I hope that we have a legal system. We have lawyers across this country who will stand up and say that this is wrong. This is beyond weaponization, and they are going to have to do something. Now, I'm here in Arizona, Jay, and I have to tell you, there's a state rep who sent an email around to a couple of people last night. And he said, I was trying to stay on the sidelines in this race, but as a lawyer, I'm watching the weaponization of the justice system against one political party, and I cannot sit by and allow this to happen. I am now standing firm with Donald Trump. Now, that is a state rep in Arizona. I think that's happening over and over. People who have common sense are looking at the situation and saying, wow, is this scary? Are we literally teetering on a system that is like kangaroo courts? And
worse than a kangaroo court, because unfortunately, these courts and these judges can put people in jail for a really long time.
Yeah, I was about to say, and kangaroo courts get overthrown all the time. And we don't want to become that country. But Rick, I can't think of a time that is more serious for people to take a stand and to speak out, because because I think we have one of two options. We're either going to do that and we're going to right this wrong and right the ship, if you will, or we're going to sit on the sidelines and this is going to be the norm and this will be our last opportunity really to speak out, because in the future we will know, and our kids will also learn, that if you speak up against the system will crush you. Even if you represent people who are speaking up against the system, you might not even agree with them, but you represent their freedom to do that, the system will crush you. And we are now living in a totally different country than our founders. But this might be that moment that if we allow it to move forward, and if you're a young person right now looking at this, you say, I don't want to ever be involved in this process.
Yeah, I'm encouraged. I want to encourage our listeners, because every single time that I talk to someone who is a first or second generation American, I'm really encouraged about what's going to happen to our country. I have hope, because these individuals who left fascism and came to America are watching what's happening, and they're like the canaries in the coal mine. They're screaming. They're saying, I left this system of fascism where the media and the ruling party completely go after the opposition and crush the opposition. I see it happening in the Balkans pretty regularly. And people who come to this country, who leave fascism, are warning Americans. And so the people who have been here, Americans that are fourth, fifth, sixth generation, they need to take this warning from the first and second generation Americans, wise up, take a stand, and do not let this happen to our country. I think Washington, D.C., and everyone involved in Washington, D.C. is totally corrupt.
I've got to tell you this, Rick, and where I'm really concerned. And I know I'm coming this with my own bias as a defense lawyer. I've been defending people for 40 years. That's what we're supposed to be. But the way I was trained is I'm the bulletproof vest. I'm the one that stands between the system and my client. And if the system is allowed to take my bulletproof vest off and stick it in a closet, being a jail, well, then who's defending the people? And then what kind of republic do we have? So all these people on CNN last night cheering this indictment, these lawyers should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, it's horrifying. Lawyers go. This isn't lawyers like help rob a bank. This wasn't a lawyer who was involved in a murder. This was a lawyer defending an election law lawsuit. And for that, they're facing 20 years in prison. Sorry, go ahead.
And by the way, the hypocrisy is very real, because when you look at the video of Democrat after Democrat challenging the elections of 2001, 2005, 2016, they did the same thing. And yet now it's weaponized against them. I want to say this too. I think that it's a very valid point to show that Donald Trump was pushing back, using his free speech moments to push back on what he saw as a stolen election. But when it came time to leave, when all options were done, he didn't try to stay in office. He left. He left.
Yeah, they conveniently, we're running out of time. They're conveniently forgetting that part. Yeah. But you know what? Here's what I want to say, Rick. President Trump has got resources to hire lawyers. He's got lawyers. Here's the problem. These lawyers are not Donald Trump. I mean, they're very successful lawyers, but you're talking about millions of dollars in legal fees. And this is the real problem with all this. You are in uncharted territory, folks, here. We're just trying to figure out what to do. When I've been reading this thing for a day now, or in evening.
It came out almost midnight.
Yeah, it was very late, so I read it till about 2 a.m, then read it again this morning. We just got to fight. I mean, that's what the answer is. You got to fight.
Yeah, and this is a fight worth having, because I really do believe that when we get to, I don't want my kids to grow up in a country where they have to feel like they can't share their political views. There's only one accepted political view. And if you have a different opinion, but it's not the opinion that the local DA has, that opinion might be criminal to have the opinion. Like, I thought we lived in a country where we were pretty clear on what was criminal and what was, again, just speech we didn't like or activity we might not agree with, but it certainly didn't rise to the level of crime. I thought we kind of accepted that as Americans. And occasionally we might have to take a case or two to figure that out, to figure kind of where we are, because things change and the country changes and demographics change. But then as a whole, we can figure out what's just something I don't like, but I accept as part of being an American with liberty, and what's something that is actually criminal that society needs to prevent. And when I read through this indictment, I don't see activities that rise to the level of criminal activity that we need to remove from our society.
I think that's right. I think that's 100% correct. But we got to fight here, folks, and a challenge that I've never seen. So we're in the middle of a
locality where the jury is going to be
a disaster.
Yeah.
But we're in the middle of a life and liberty drive. So we've had to learn this month that we've got to defend life and liberty, and we've got to defend multiple things and multiple times, maybe with multiple people. Your support for the ACLJ is critical now more than ever. We need you to stand with us. We don't get to do this without you. If you want to help all these people we're helping, these whistleblowers, these cases, go to aclj.org. Donate to the ACLJ. Your gift will be doubled. But this is our Life and Liberty Drive month, and we need you to stand with us.